terrifying. Utterly...
Hello? Hello? Well, if you're hearing this, then chances are you've made a very poor career choice.
Hello, everybody. My name is Markiplier, and welcome to Five Nights at Freddy's.
Hello, everybody. You ready to have a good time? I know I am.
I will make you proud, Daddy.
For one of you, the darkest pit of hell has opened its funnel holes. So don't keep the devil waiting, friend. End communication.
Five Nights at Freddy's, a franchise I'm sure you've already heard of, at least to some degree. I mean, heck, you're watching this video on YouTube, and FNAF is practically its own category on this website, similar to how its fan games have taken over GameJolt. Quite like its restaurants, FNAF is a franchise that's practically inescapable, and today we'll be taking a look at how a poorly performing mobile game spawned a 13-game franchise, with a theatrical film on the way from Blumhouse, a studio known for such things as The Purge and Halloween. Now let's get started.
My name is Christian.
Our story begins with a man named Scott Cawthon, an independent game developer and animator. He'd worked on a long list of content, ranging as far back as 20 years ago, with his first ever video game, The Legacy of Flan, releasing in 2003. Scott would focus primarily on Christian and sci-fi games, which, though earning him a little bit here and there, wasn't bringing in enough to properly support his family. However, all of this would change when in 2013 Scott released Chipper & Sons Lumber Co. Chipper & Sons told the story of a lumber company ran by a humanoid beaver named Chipper and his son Tyke. As Tyke, the player does objectives ranging from collecting certain amounts of wood, talking to other characters found in Beaver Forest, building, and playing minigames. Along with this free-to-play game being hosted on websites such as GameJolt, Scott was trying to get it onto Steam using Steam's Greenlight process, an old Steam feature where users could vote on the games they want to see make it onto the website. Unfortunately for Scott, this never happened, but during the Greenlight process, something else did.
You may notice the dead, terrifying, soulless eyes of the background characters. That's, whatever the fuck it was called, Chipper & Sons.
Reviewers and internet critics mocked the game, with one of the key complaints being that they look like scary animatronics. And so, in a last-ditch effort, Scott decided to take one last stab at game development, and after considering 3 different titles, he settled on Five Nights at Freddy's. Five Nights at Freddy's, or FNAF, is a resource management survival horror game set in Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, an establishment similar to Chuck E. Cheese. You take on the role of a night guard who's tasked with watching over the place during the night shift, with your only source of information or story coming from a man simply known as Phone Guy, a former night guard leaving behind messages for the new guy.
Hello? Hello? I wanted to record a message for you to help you get settled in on your first night. Welcome to Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, a magical place where fantasy and fun come to life, blah blah blah.
And okay, he's not the only source of lore. There are also things such as rare screens or newspaper clippings, but you have to be looking for it if you want to find it. During the night, there are 4 animatronics who will come after you. The band singer Freddy Fazbear, the bassist Bonnie the Rabbit, and the girl, Chica the Chicken. Finally, there's Foxy the Pirate, who has a solo act in Pirate's Cove, but for some reason he's been decommissioned. It's your job to keep them out of your office, because, well, according to Phone Guy, they'll confuse you for an endoskeleton and shove you into a metal robot suit. The game was developed over the course of 6 months, with his son serving as beta testers. The game was made with the ClickTeam Fusion engine and used Autodesk 3D Max to model the characters, and audio that Scott created himself or purchased online. The game, luckily, made it through the Steam Greenlight process, and it was up for sale on August 18th, 2014. Now, a huge part of this franchise's success is due to the content creators essentially giving Scott free advertising. The first ever Five Nights at Freddy's video was uploaded before the game even came out by one of Scott's beta testers known on YouTube as Ben the Scoopist, who released his first Let's Play video on July 26, 2014.
He actually came out and gave it to me, which is so cool. It's actually on Steam Greenlight. I'll throw all the links up to his website, to the Steam Greenlight.
Although this video did help spread the word around, there was one channel in particular that essentially kicked off the FNAF craze.
Hello, everybody. My name is Markiplier, and welcome to Five Nights at Freddy's.
Since you're watching this on YouTube, it's safe to assume that, like FNAF, you know who Markiplier is. At least to some degree. I mean, he's essentially one of the faces of this website, up there on the YouTube Mount Rushmore. Using the demo version available on IndieDB, Mark posted his first Five Nights at Freddy's video on August 12, 2014, a few days before its official Steam release, and ever since this franchise has been a constant presence on the site. Like I mentioned earlier, FNAF is practically a category on YouTube. If you scroll for long enough, chances are you'll find something FNAF related. There are actual verified channels dedicated to role-playing as the animatronics, and there are full-on FNAF-focused content creators covering official releases, fan games, and even a swarm of never-ending merchandise. I see you, Funko, releasing circus and Christmas FNAF merch as if that's even a thing. I swear, you guys milk this about as much as Markiplier. Back on topic, with the sudden rise in popularity, Scott, naturally, was pretty happy, and so was his wife. She was really proud of him, but like any content creator who sees a sudden spike in popularity, he on the other hand was on the mindset that this would pass. It'll be popular for a few days, but it won't last. But boy oh boy was he wrong. A month after the first game's release, there was a post on ScottGames.com, and in October a trailer dropped. A demo of the game would be sent out to some YouTubers, such as Markiplier, and on November 10th we would see the release of Five Nights at Freddy's 2, a whole month before its planned release date. As you'll soon find out, Scott had a tendency to release things early. This game, a prequel, took you out of the pizzeria in shoes of a security guard, and, put you right back into them. Though this time around, he implemented new features, such as the music box, which you need to keep wound up to keep the marionette at bay, and the Freddy mask used to trick animatronics into recognizing you as one of them. The game, to absolutely nobody's surprise, was successful, and so, in old Scott fashion, he would release another teaser on his website, just a couple months later in January 2015, the same year Funko acquired the license to create FNAF merch. On January 26, 2015, a new trailer dropped for Five Nights at Freddy's 3, and on that same day it was entered into and passed Steam's Greenlight program. On March 1st, similar to what he did with FNAF 2, a demo was given out to select YouTubers, and the game would officially release literally just hours later on March 2nd. This entry was set at Fazbear Frights, not to be confused with another official FNAF horror attraction in Las Vegas. This in-game spook house would be dedicated to exploiting the real-life murders and disappearances that took place at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, and in this attraction is an old spring-lock suit that, unbeknownst to anyone working there, is the reanimated, still surviving, it's the killer, William Afton, the man who killed the kids and hid their bodies in the robots. You have to use audio lures to keep him away, all the while managing your vents, camera, and audio, and try not to get spooked by phantom hallucinations. This entry, originally intended to be the end of the timeline, wasn't as popular or well received as the others. It certainly wasn't a flop by any means, but out of the three, this one was given the most hate, and so it was this backlash, along with Scott's own dislike of the jump scare, that caused the creation of yet another game. On April 27, 2015, Scott began releasing teasers for another game, and on July 21st, YouTubers were sent demos. Originally, the game was planned to release on or around Halloween, but Scott being Scott, released the game just 2 days later on July 23rd. This entry in the series relies heavily on the audio, and for the first time in the series, you no longer play as a night guard, but instead as a little boy, and it's up to you to keep the scary nightmare monsters out of your room. The boy you play as is revealed to be one of William Afton's sons, and in a book that released in 2023, we learn that William was using his Twisted One's gas on the boy, causing him to have these nightmarish hallucinations. A few months later, on October 30th, Scott released a Halloween update, which allowed players to choose between Basic and Halloween Edition. This update was cosmetic only, replacing a couple characters and reskinning some others. Now this entry was originally dubbed the Final Chapter, because, like the third game, it was intended to be the final installment. But if series like Friday the 13th or Puppet Master are anything to go by, just because something is called the Final Chapter doesn't mean we're any more than maybe a third of the way through the series. At least currently. I'm sure there will be a lot more games to come. Now that that chapter has been finished, let's start a whole new one, with novels. Along with having an absurd amount of games, the FNAF franchise has an equally as large, if not larger series of books, graphic novels, and activity books. If I'm not mistaken, there are over 30 of them. But the first installment in this new FNAF chapter would be Five Nights at Freddy's The Silver Eyes, co-written by Scott Cawthon and Kira Breed Raisley, a woman who would contribute quite a number of times when it comes to the FNAF book series. And back to the games. Scott, unhappy with FNAF 4's reception as well as the jump scares, decided to make another installment, though this one would confuse some people. Wanting to take an understandable break from all the depressing child murder, Scott created FNAF World, a spin-off to the at-the-time concluded main series, which he announced in September of 2015, with a trailer dropping sometime later. Originally planning for a release on February 2nd, 2016, the date was moved up to January 22nd, but instead released a day earlier on January 21st. The game, unlike the past four, was hated by a large portion of the fan base, with complaints about the style change, false advertising due to the trailer depicting a 3D environment which is missing at launch, missing features, and it being in a pretty unstable and unfinished state. Scott would go on to apologize to the fan base, along with taking down the game for sale on Steam, making it available for free on GameJolt, and then issuing refunds to anyone who purchased it. Say what you want about his games, but this goes to show that this is a man who really cares about his fan base. The GameJolt version, which released on February 8th, included a new overworld and other features that were absent from the original release. On May 13th, the second update was released, which included new characters, a new map, and voice acting. And finally, on January 12, 2017, FNAF World was briefly released on Android, but removed the next day. Now you can still download the game for free on Steam, but I won't get into how to do that, you can just use Google. But after all that was said and done, Scott would later say he learned the most from FNAF World, especially in regards to not taking his community for granted. Now, it was with the second update to FNAF World where we got to meet an unnamed man who would tell the player that he created something evil. Baby. In April of 2016, Scott Games released a teaser with the tagline, "There was never just one." And on May 21st, a new FNAF trailer dropped. This one for Five Nights at Freddy's sister location. The release date was set for October 7th, and true to his word, the game actually released on that date. Of course, before that, Scott had a bit of fun and trolled the community a little with a fake leak and whatnot, but when the game really came out, fans loved it. At least compared to FNAF World. Sister location puts you back in the shoes of a security guard, as a man named Michael Afton, William's son. The game has a linear story that sees the player doing different tasks each night, and it even included voice acting. Shortly after the game's release, Scott patched it a bit to ease the difficulty, and on December 1st he added the custom night update. And there you have it. It's something I would say, but we're not even halfway through the franchise yet. And it looks like Scholastic just acquired the publishing rights to the FNAF novels. In June 2017, Scott hinted at a new entry in the series via his website, Scott Games, but later said he'd cancelled it, claiming that he wanted to work on a separate installment similar to FNAF World, like a Pizzeria Tycoon. This was due to Scott believing another year of teases would lead to a burnout and people not being interested. Some months later, on December 4th, Scott released Five Nights at Freddy's Pizzeria Simulator as a free-to-play game on Steam. And if you're wondering why it's not free on other platforms, that's because the companies that port the games need to make money. Fans, including the YouTubers on Scott's VIP list, all assumed this was a spin-off Tycoon game, and one look at the Steam page would lead you to believe just that. But little did they know, this installment was a true sequel, and the final nail in the coffin of the Five Nights at Freddy's story. This installment sees the player take on the responsibilities of owning and operating your own Freddy Fazbear's franchise. You do legitimately customize and operate your own restaurant, but at night you have to restock and manage the place, all the while trying not to get killed by any of the animatronics you've bought or salvaged. The events in this installment were a trap, set up by Fazbear co-founder Henry Emily. His goal was to lure all the trapped souls possessing the animatronics into the restaurant, and then end it all. And that's exactly what he does, getting every animatronic, including his old business partner William Afton, locking them inside and setting it ablaze. People loved it, and as a final goodbye to the franchise, Scott personally gave the fan base one last surprise. But before getting into that, let's address one of the very few things in the franchise that was removed, or should I say replaced. About a year after Pizza Sim came out, Gibson Brands Inc. filed a lawsuit against another music company, Dean Guitars. This was over one of their guitars appearing to infringe on their copyright, and as a result of this, and them allegedly threatening Funko as well, Scott, not wanting to deal with any sort of lawsuits, had Bonnie's guitar replaced in Pizza Sim, and it was removed or changed in every game going forward, since the original guitar was near identical to the Gibson Flying V. As a result of this, one of the only places this guitar remains is in Bonnie's reissued Wave 1 Funko figure. It could change one day, however, given the fact they never fixed it yet, and their 13-inch Bonnie does have a new guitar, I'm guessing that they're just not interested in going to that little effort, and if it comes to it, it's possible Funko may discontinue that figure one day. Now in February 2018, after the release of Pizza Sim, Scott announced that he was considering getting help from other publishers in regards to future installments, and in said announcement, he would add an edit, announcing the development of Ultimate Custom Night, the final mainline game to be created by Scott Cawthon. Originally planned to be an update to Pizza Sim, he quickly realized that this thing was way too big, so he made it its own free-to-play game, which again does cost money on other platforms. The people porting gotta eat. The game was due to release on June 22nd, 2018, but because of a promise made to a FNAF YouTuber named Daco, he held off release until he was back from a cruise. Silly reasoning, but hey, at least the fans got their hands on it just days later on June 27th. This installment saw you taking on the role of a security guard, but there's a catch. This shift never ends. I mean it does, it lasts from 12 to 6, but for the player character, William Afton, This is a fate that's inescapable. Trapped in your own personal hell, in the shoes of William Afton, you can face between 1 and 50 Five Nights at Freddy's characters, with a difficulty setting that ranges from 1 to 20. And after reaching a certain amount of points, you're treated to a fun little reward screen after the night ends. UCN also gives a voice to nearly every animatronic featured in it, excluding the main 3 band members, due to Scott wanting the right voice for his iconic trio. And I would assume this is the reason that Showtime was left unused in the next game we're about to talk about.
Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. For kids, it's #1. Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, where fantasy meets fun.
On August 19th, 2018, Scott confirmed he was collaborating with a studio, later revealed to be Steelwool Studios, on a virtual reality FNAF game. And on March 25th, during Sony's State of Play livestream, there was a trailer for Five Nights at Freddy's Help Wanted, and the game debuted publicly at PAX East from March 28th to March 31st at PSVR demonstrations. Originally, Scott approached Steelwool with the idea of simply recreating the original FNAF games in VR, but after liking the studio's first proof of concept so much, that plan quickly expanded. On May 28th, 2019, Five Nights at Freddy's Help Wanted would release, which featured a lot of FNAF-themed minigames, including shorter versions of the original games. And on October 23rd, just in time for Halloween, they would release the Curse of Dreadbear DLC, which included an almost equal amount of unique Halloween-themed minigames. Oh yeah, and it can also be played in VR or standard mode.
With the Fazbear Fun Time service, you'll never be alone again.
Help Wanted wouldn't be the only FNAF game to release in 2019, however, because in November of that year came the release of the only mobile exclusive, Five Nights at Freddy's Special Delivery. The game features location-based augmented reality gameplay, similar to something like Pokemon Go. Animatronics are sent to the player's home, and it's your job to survive with nothing more than a flashlight and a controlled shock device. You can also salvage animatronics for parts, and send your own animatronics to your friends' homes. Okay, so it would turn out that both Help Wanted and Special Delivery still aren't the only FNAF games to release in 2019. On August 8th, Scott began development on the sequel to a FNAF World minigame, Five Nights at Freddy's 57, Freddy in Space. Because all great horror franchises go to space at some point, and on September 29th, Scott released a teaser, giving us our first ever look at Fazbear Entertainment mascot Roxanne Wolf, who wouldn't appear in a game for another 2 years. A trailer released on November 30th, and on December 3rd, Freddy in Space 2 officially released for free on Game Jolt, dedicated to a fan named Skylar Jin who passed away on October 26th, and with an end goal of bringing awareness to a St. Jude Children's Hospital fundraiser. Along with being a game developer who really cares about his fan base, he's also a really giving guy, known for donating huge amounts to these sorts of things. Alrighty, now we're moving into 2021, and would you look at that, Funko just released images of their upcoming products, leaking the new game and characters all over Twitter. Gee, you really couldn't wait until the thing actually came out to milk it, huh? This line of figures was absolutely horrible, and that's not just my opinion. Not only were they based off concept art, you know, the non-finalized designs, but they reused parts from a lot of their older figures, like Freddy, Chica, and Roxy's heads. Funko messed up bad. Scott would tell the community, things will be happening very, very differently going forward. Unfortunately, this didn't mean a new company would handle the toys, but it was because of this why we've got and are still currently getting some really high quality Funko statues that actually look accurate to the games. This wouldn't be the only security breach related hiccup, however, and at some point leading up to the planned release, the game was delayed a second time, and so as an apology on April 28th, 2021, Scott released Security Breach Fury's Rage, another free-to-play spin-off, and this one in the wave-based arcade fighter genre. And now, ladies and gents, here we are, at Five Nights at Freddy's Security Breach, all caught up to the most current release. For now, anyway. I mean, Help Wanted 2 was announced at PlayStation Showcase 2023 for a December release date, so soon this video will already be outdated. But the information and story provided by it are still relevant. Now let's get back on topic, shall we? On August 8th, 2019, Scott Games was updated to feature a teaser image depicting an 80s-styled shopping mall, with Freddy, Chica, and 2 unknowns at the time, Monty and Roxy. Over the following months, more teasers would release, showcasing new characters along with Vanny from Help Wanted. And then, on April 21st, 2020, that's when the Funko leak happened, which gave the game the title of Pizzaplex. Originally, the game was set to release in 2020, as confirmed by Scott, and on September 16th, the first teaser trailer was released. However, due to the COVID-19 pandemic and new additions to the game, it was delayed to early 2021. Teasers and full-on trailers were released in the following months, as well as Hanna-Barbera-styled cartoons called Freddy and Friends on Tour, and during Sony's State of Play on October 27, 2021, the release date was revealed to be December 16th. This installment is a fully 3D open-world game that saw the player take on the role of a little boy trapped in the Pizzaplex, with the goal of surviving until opening time so you can leave. Unfortunately, the game wasn't received very well, due to it releasing in a broken state. Many updates would come out for the game, fixing problems and adding quality of life improvements. And then, on July 25, 2023, they released Security Breach Ruin, a free DLC that has the player take on the role of Cassie, one of the boy's friends, who is lured into the Pizzaplex by the Mimic under the guise of saving the boy. And now that brings us to October 26, 2023, a movie that's been in the works since 2015. Having seen a couple different studios such as Warner Bros. Try and get their hands on it, countless different scripts including a Plushie's Takeover New York thing that was a very real possibility, and who knows how many headaches for Scott Cawthon. Little is known about the movie just yet, however we do know that Scott hopes to do a trilogy based around the first 3 games, and that Matthew Lillard, the actor playing William Afton, is signed on for 3 movies. And there you have it. That's been the entire journey of the Five Nights at Freddy's franchise. From a hate comment on a Lumber Tycoon game to one of the biggest names in horror. If you made it this far, I want to thank you for doing so. I plan on doing other documentary-style videos on games and movies in the future. And if you like this, consider checking out the FNAF-inspired issue of my horror parody comic. Thanks again, and I hope to catch you around in the next video. Have a nice day.
Looking for more horror fun?
You're goddamn right.
Then check out the VHS comic book series, a parody of the horror genre that follows the lives of 3 teens as they fight to survive a horror movie, where every day is loaded with blood, boobs, and buds. The first 2 issues can be found in the description below.
I was obsessed with the VHS.